Hey everybody, what's going on? And welcome back to another episode of the Saturdays in Stores podcast, which you could find right here on the Court Store Media Network. My name is Kanaye Tesoro, and man, what a win, what a game. Incredible comeback. I'm really still at a loss for words, and I don't know how to fully describe this win that UConn was able to come away with in Friartown at Providence, Rhode Island at the dunk. Place was loud, place was rowdy, was crazy. And just I think you got to give so much credit to both the coaching staff, the players for never feeling that they were out of the fight and continuing to go at it and fight back and chip away at Providence's lead and ultimately force overtime and just never turn back from there and come out with a 103-98 win at Amica Mutual Pavilion. Really, I think a lot of it comes down to the incredible shot making from the pair of Braylon Mullins and Silas Demery Jr. What those two guys did down the stretch, especially in overtime, just incredible. And I think it speaks volumes to the potential of this team when everyone is there offensively. And I'm going to break down what I was able to take away out of this game on this episode today. But really, just what was an incredible win on this night of Wednesday, January 7th. But before we get into all of that today, please engage with the content you see on this channel in any way you can, whether it's liking, subscribing, or just telling other people about what we do here at the Court Storm. Everything goes a really long way in influencing YouTube's algorithm to get more people to see our videos. Also, be sure to turn on post notifications so you're the newest to see our latest content. So let's get right into it. I want to start off by apologizing if I sound a little tired. It's now a little close to 2 hours after the game, and I'm definitely going to be on my way to bed shortly after recording this here today. But let's talk about it. 103-98 win at the dunk. I think it's important to talk about where Providence kind of stood going into this game, where they came off a really, really big win on the road at St. John's, where they were facing a double-digit lead at one point in the second half, were able to come back and ultimately win that game at Madison Square Garden. They were in a position where, hey, they just picked up a huge road win against what a lot of people thought was the second best team in the Big East going into conference play, and now they play the best team in the Big East. And for them to be in a position where they knew that they were going to get UConn at home, they were going to be able to pack the amp or the dunk or whatever you call it. It depends on what era of a Friar fan you might be, whether you call it the dunk or the AMP. But nonetheless, the place was packed. It was rocking. Sure, everyone there had several drinks leading up to tip off, and I'm sure that the drinks continued to flow throughout the entirety of the game. But just Providence, I mean, I got to give credit. It's one of the best home atmospheres in the country, one of the best home environments and toughest places to win in college basketball. I still would probably have Allen Fieldhouse number one, but I can hear a legitimate argument of having Providence, Rhode Island as top 10. But anyways, it's a tough place to play. UConn's had some tough luck there in the past. You think back to before the two back-to-back national championship teams where the last 2 years you've won in pretty dominant fashion at the dunk. And then before that, you fell victim to some tough losses there on the road for Dan Hurley and the UConn program dating back a couple years. But Providence, a lot of motivation going into this game. Would have been a huge resume win in their case for making the big dance in March, considering that they stood at 8-6 going into this game. I definitely think that Providence is better than what their record says. They have really true pro level players in my eyes. I mean, Ryan Mila, he was outstanding this game. He was by far their best player. He had 19 points. And I mean, when he did that behind the back and laid it in with the up and under finish on the left side, I really thought it was over because I think that pushed the lead to 11 once more for what seemed like the 10th time in the second half. And UConn was able to battle back and get back into it. I'll touch more on the second half in a little bit. But on top of that, I felt like Arumze, he was really important in what Providence wanted to do in the first half. I think what allowed Providence to get out to a big lead in the first half and really excel at what they wanted to run was just having him on the floor. He was able to really pose some problems for Terrace Reed. Terrace Reed had a tough first half. And I mean, if we're calling it for what it is, he was a black hole offensively. He turned the ball over, which is something I kind of forgot to talk about on last week's episode, where that is a slight issue that this UConn team is having this year. They are fairly turnover prone. I believe their turnover rate is the highest of any team in the Big East, so that's definitely something you don't want to see. I will add, though, that their turnovers per game has gone down slightly since their first couple Big East games in league play. So that's definitely good to see that statistic trending in the right direction. But again, they were a little careless with the basketball in the first half. Providence was able to capitalize off UConn's mistakes early. I think offensively, Providence really sped them up instead of allowing them to be the slow, methodical offense that we all know Hurley loves or has really built this dynasty and STORRS on. So I think that's definitely what allowed Providence to really succeed early on in this game. I also think the play of Jameer Jones, other guys like Jason Edwards, Jalen Sellers, they were able to get going really early. Also, former Husky Corey Floyd had a really good game where he was efficient from the field. He knocked down 2 threes. And I think that just in the first half, there was a lack of defensive aggression and tenacity. There was a lack of toughness. And that's just something that I think it was good that UConn needed to face that because they hadn't seen that in Big East play really to start conference play. So that was a major concern I had where I legitimately wondered if UConn was ever going to be a position where they were going to be challenged in the Big East. And that's something that concerns you just because you play a lot of teams that probably won't end up making the NCAA tournament. I mean, even now, I think there's a legitimate case to be made that St. John's isn't really on track to make the tournament right now. I wouldn't argue with you all too much if you were a strong believer in that. Again, you're kind of in a position similar to Gonzaga where they play in the WCC, of course, the mid-major conference. Usually their out-of-conference schedule leading up to conference play is pretty challenging. They play some of the top flight programs around the country. And then, of course, following the WCC tournament, you jump right into March where you're probably going to be playing much more of those top flight programs once again. So that's something that I was concerned for UConn's case where you're not being challenged. You're winning every game by 20 plus the way they kind of have been to start Big East play before this game at Providence. Just how they would fare when they got into a close game or how they would handle playing a team that really was just in it and had a lot of fight. And that's what Providence did. They challenged them. They had a lot of fight. I mean, the announcers, Donnie Marshall, John Fanta, they talked about it during the game. And I got to mention, a lot of flowers go to John Fanta. He was amazing on the call tonight. It was really incredible, especially in overtime. I love he's kind of coined the nickname for Braylon Mullins now, the bringer of rain. Love that nickname, by the way. But anyways, back to my point, John Fanta and Donnie Marshall both said, UConn is everyone's Super Bowl in the Big East, and you're going to get the best. You're going to get the other team's best every single time you step on the floor against whoever UConn might be facing. And that was the case in this game. Providence came out hot. They came out determined. They shot, I believe, damn near 60% from three in this basketball game. So that tells you all you need to know. They completely made the scouting report going in obsolete because, Ryan Mila was not a great three-point shooter going into this game, and he knocked down a couple threes. Duncan Powell had only made 5 threes the entire season leading up to this game, and he made 3. I got to say, Stephen Fox, he was able to get some good looks off, and he's been shooting the cover off the ball since the St. John's game. I think that was definitely something I noticed throughout the game, not just the first half, where I do feel the defense did get a lot better in the second half, but I think they struggled communicating over ball screens behind the three-point line. I think they went under on a lot of those screens instead of going over, and I think that led to a lot of opportunities for Jameer Jones, Stephen Vax, Ryan Mila as well to be able to get off good looks and knock them down. So that was something that I would definitely like to see fixed going forward out of UConn. But, overall, just it was not the greatest first half out of UConn. They had a nice run where really just an electric run from both teams where Silas starts off by making a 3. Stephen Vax comes down, hits a fadeaway 3. Braylon Mullins pulls up from just about the logo and knocks it down. I can't remember if they got a stop or not on the defensive end against Providence, but Alex Caravan comes down on the next possession, bangs a 3 home. So that was pretty fun to see. The offense was, for the most part, there in the first half. I didn't have all too many complaints. I did, outside of them being a little bit sped up more than what they normally run their offense, the pace they normally run their offense to, and more comfortably run their offense too. So that was really my only critique offensively. I think a lot of it fell on the defensive aggression and just the overall toughness factor that we saw at UConn in that first half. And that was something that was definitely addressed by Dan Hurley at halftime. He talked about how I don't know if they had shot free throws in the first half where Providence definitely got to the line. That is something that this UConn team does tend to struggle to do, being able to get to the line. They don't have a lot of guys that are great at drawing fouls. Of course, Solo Ball isn't necessarily hunting those fouls on the three-point attempts as much as he was at the beginning of the year. Really, you don't have too many great just get to the cup, in the lane, finish at the rim type of guys that are able to draw fouls. Silas is really your only guy that can do that. And he was able to get to the line in this game, especially in the second half, so that was nice to see, but didn't do it in the first. Dan Hurley talked about it. He wanted to see a higher level of aggression and toughness out of his team defensively, and then, again, being able to go to the basket more in the second half. And I think that was really important because Terrace Reed established himself down low very early into the second half, and him being able to draw those fouls and get to the line and knocked down most of his free throws. Overall, that was good. And then he was able to get more paint touches going forward throughout the rest of the game. And UConn ended up turning to a lineup where solo ball sat an extended amount of minutes, and Jalen Stewart logged damn near 30 minutes in this game. And I think Jalen's the thing with Jalen Stewart this year is his box scores might not be the most impressive, but I think his impact goes much further beyond that. What he did and just really allowing for the toughness meter to increase on from the guys that were on the floor. The five of Silas, Mullins, Stewie, AK, and Terrace, I think was so important. You had guys really playing in foul trouble for an extended amount of time, just because I felt like you really had to trust the guys that were going to give you the best shot defensively in this game. And a lot of people that they're worried about solo ball. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't slightly, just because he still really hasn't got it going from three yet. He did not shoot great in this basketball game, and he wasn't defending as well as he has to start this year. Of course, he's still not the greatest defender, but he's definitely improved much more from where he was at in respect to where he was last year as a defender. But I think Hurley just wanted to turn to the best five. They gave him the best chance on the defensive end of the floor, and that's what he did. And I got to give Stewie a lot of credit. He knocked down a huge three really late in the second half, which definitely helped UConn cut the deficit and ultimately force overtime. But really, I think just what they were able to do defensively in the second half and not giving up some of the easier shots, and especially when they were in the double bonus, especially when Providence was in the double bonus, they didn't foul. They were really disciplined to be able to get stops without fouling. That was just really impressive to me. Of course, Jason Edwards or Jalen Sellers, hit the backbreaker three right after UConn was able to cut it to a 2-point game. And then Caravan comes down, makes another three to cut it to two. Once more, they get the stop on the other end. And Terrace Reed, right place, right time, was able to put it back off the Caravan missed 3-pointer. And OT was definitely, yeah, I'll get to OT in a little bit. But first, I want to talk about Silas Demery, because for a long time, we've been talking about when is Silas going to turn the corner, when he's going to make the leap that TNU made, when he kind of figured it out in late January, early February of the 22-23 season. And I think this could be the turning point game for Silas, where really 3 games in a row now, he's played well offensively, going back to the DePaul game where he threw up at the beginning of the second half on the court. Probably had his best offensive scoring game since the BYU matchup back in at TD Garden at the start of the season. Then following that, he made 3 threes against Marquette, and in this game against Providence, he made 4 threes. He was aggressive. He took it to the basket and was able to finish through He finished. I think he had 1 or 2 and ones in the game. I mentioned earlier he was able to get to the line, and I believe he knocked down all of his free throws. So that's very good to see. All 5 free throws he shot, if I'm not mistaken. And then again, just really being in the right spots and being able to get to his spots and knock down threes, just taking what the defense is giving him. He would have been 100% from 3 in this game if he hadn't shot the half court shot at the end of the first half to beat the buzzer, and then the one to try to win the game as like a Hail Mary heave at the end of regulation. So really, if you discredit those 2 misses, then he shot 100% from 3 in this game, 4 for 4. Of course, in the box score goes down as 4 for 6, but 7 for 11 overall. 23 points, 15 assists, 5 steals. Just the job he's done defensively this year it's been incredible to see how he's been the complete driving factor of the change in defensive identity for UConn this year, where last year they couldn't guard on the perimeter to save their lives, and now he just brings such a level of toughness, and he's really a dog on the floor, and he does so much, and really just being a disciplined defender, being able to pull out the chair and force some misses that don't look great at the rim. And you have to give Silas so many flowers, because I think this is a starting point of him turning the corner and being the next great UConn point guard. I mean, 23 and 15. I can't tell you the last time I've seen anyone in college basketball do that. It just so impressive. And when you couple that with what he's done and how important he is on the defensive end of the floor, it's incredible. And, I think it's understandable why it's taken some time and why we might not see this every night necessarily going forward. But I think now defenses, they got to respect Silas as a major threat to score. He's proven, in the past at Georgia, he can knock down threes. He hasn't really done it too much this year at the start, but he's starting to do it. I think he's starting to slowly figure things out about how to be aggressive when he needs to be and how to be a facilitator when he needs to do that as well. And let me tell you, Silas, you can make your pick for who you think the best player on this team is, but I think Silas Demery is by far the most important for how far UConn can go this year. Now, as for Braylon Mullins, the other star of the night, really just no fear. That's just moment was not too big for him. I think for him to, of course, make his first collegiate free throws at Fall Allen Fieldhouse to ice the game and beat Kansas for the first time in program history. I think that alone told you a lot about the type of player Braylon Mullins is, and not having fear, just being uber confident and the willingness to take a lot of tough shots, a lot of deep threes, which are in his range, very much so after this game against Providence. But he's a game changer. He really is the X factor, I think, on this team. He is in a way the Jordan Hawkins, where hey, Hawk used to spring off for three threes in a row and just completely shift the dynamic and the momentum in any given game. And that's kind of what Braylon did tonight on the day of this recording. I mean, 6 for 10 from three. What he did in that overtime period was just incredible, where he comes off, gets the shooter's touch on a swing pass from AK, follows that up with a made three, and then another made three. And then, I mean, really, I think he defended. He had good moments defensively, although I did notice he kind of got beat on the baseline at several points throughout the game, and that's something that he kind of can't do going forward. But I think he, again, had moments defensively that were solid. He was able to get 2 steals in this game to add to his 24 points, which is a career high. Also forgot to mention Silas's 23 points is a UConn career high. So congrats to Silas on that, and congrats to Braylon on his 24-point career high performance. 6 threes is the most he's made in a game so far this year, and it's good to see him back closer towards that 40% mark in terms of his 3-point percentage, just because that game against Marquette, where I think he shot 1 for 7 from 3, definitely dropped his percentages a lot lower than where they probably should be. But having a game like this really has established himself, and he's here. Braylon Mullins, the bringer of rain, he's here, and hopefully he's here to stay, and we'll see a lot more performances out of him coming up in these games to come. Alex Karaban, I think, was the unsung hero of this game. Really, Silas's performance and Braylon's performance, they're very loud, and that's kind of what happens with AK, where he usually has a better box score than a lot of people end up remembering from what he did in the game. He finished with 23 points. He hit 5 threes in this game, and he hit a lot of big ones, especially the one to cut the lead to 2. Of course, he missed the 3, which would have gave UConn the lead with 12 seconds left. But Terrace, thankfully, right place, right time, was able to get the putback off the rebound. What he did, I think, was just again, hit some big time shots. I think he knocked down a 3 in the overtime period, which was really important. I think that on top of that, Terrace Reed just really, again, what I talked about earlier, going from having as bad of a first half as what he did to coming back and scoring the majority of his 20 points in the second half, and being a driving factor and being disciplined and playing with 4 fouls and not coming out of the game. That is another thing that kind of concerns me is the depth of UConn. Is this UConn team as deep as we think it is? Because the bench shrunk in this game. Really no one off the bench outside of Stewie played. Jaden Ross is still dealing with that hamstring issue, if I'm correct as to what his injury specifics are. So he only logged a minute in this game, and that's understandable. He's still working his way back. But Malachi Smith and Eric Riba were both not really exist in this game. I think Malachi really struggled in the minutes I saw him play, just against the really aggressive Providence pressure. Eric Riba, I think this is the first game that Eric Riba's truly looked like a freshman and just kind of looked a little lost out there. Hopefully this is something you chalk up as a learning experience playing in an environment like that. He only logged 8 minutes in this game, and Terrace, of course, played 37. So that, hey, sometimes you need your stars to play and be stars, and that's what you got in this game. Overall, I'm not all too worried about solo ball. I think he's too good of a shooter for this to continue for the entire year. And I think a lot of what's happening has to be between the years, above the shoulders. It could be similar to what Alex Karaban went through last year, with just the confidence of the worry of tanking his draft stock. And I think that might be what solo ball is going through right now. But I think he's going to start going forward. I've heard some people say Stewie might start, but that's not happening. I don't think. I would be shocked to see solo ball not start today on the day you guys are going to be seeing this recording against DePaul. I'm sure Solo will probably be in that starting lineup. And hey, don't be shocked if you see a big bounce back performance out of Solo in this game, where he hopefully knocks down 5 to 7 threes for the first time this year. Overall, really just an incredible win. I just think it speaks to the toughness of this group and the championship DNA, the championship culture that Dan Hurley has really established in STORRS and with this program, where, hey, they feel that they're never out of a game. There's no quit. it's not necessarily, okay, how are we going to win this game? We know we're going to win this game, but how are we going to do it? They're like, what exactly on the court are we going to do to be able to go ahead and win this game the way we believe we can? And like I talked about, really, when Ryan Mila went behind the back and finished up on the left side, I thought the game was wraps. I thought it was over and done with, and it was going to be a tough loss against a team that shot the lights out. But for them to stick it out and get the stops when they really needed to and hit timely shot after shot after shot. I completely forgot to mention Silas's dagger from his step back pull up mid range shot on Duncan Powell that iced the game. I mean, big time player, big time moment. We saw him do it against BYU. Saw him do it in this game too. And I mean, that backcourt duo between Silas and Braylon, they can play like this going forward. I don't know how you guard UConn. You get solo ball, shooting the basketball from beyond the arc more efficiently the way he was last year. It's going to be so hard to guard UConn. And I mean, they just got to play better defense than how they did against Providence, give up 98 points to a team that really has not looked great this year, but I think has begun to discover their offensive identity. So I think, again, any given game, it happens. It's the Big East, even down here. The Big East is no joke, as you all know. But I think that pretty much takes care of my takeaways from this Providence game. Again, just huge getting this win. I think while it was a lot closer and a lot scarier, I think, for UConn fans than it probably shouldn't have, a lot of people thought it was going to be going into the game. It's still good to get challenged and, ultimately prove that there's no quit in the Huskies fight. So looking ahead, as I mentioned today, on the day you guys will be seeing this recording, UConn takes on DePaul at home. Probably shouldn't be a game where UConn is in a position where it's scary for them or they're in jeopardy of losing. But of course, if anything crazy does happen, I'll get something out. And then on top of that, they go to The Rock on January 13th to play Seton Hall. That is a place that has not been kind to UConn and Dan Hurley for the last couple of seasons. They lost there last year and they lost the previous year as well at the Prudential Center in Newark. So, hey, you got to hope they come out strong. I think this will be a game where UConn is challenged. Seton Hall has been a great defensive team to start the year. I think Shaheen Holloway is the clear runaway favorite for Big East Coach of the Year currently. He's just gotten his guys to buy in without really any NIL funding the way other programs in the Big East have. He's gotten a bunch of dogs that just buy into his program, his culture, and they play with a lot of toughness. They play with so much fight. They're dogs on the defensive end of the floor. Not the greatest offensive team, but again, I think you just look to see how UConn's able to further improve their offensive efficiency against a team that could be the best defensive team in the Big East this year. So I'm really interested to see it. You look to see the defense get back on track to where it was leading up to the Providence game, where they're not giving up 98 points and closer to the 60-ish points they're giving up leading in Big East play leading up to tonight on Wednesday nights. Overall, I hope the Huskies' luck changes for the better going to Newark this year and homecoming for Dan Hurley. So that's always very cool to see. And hopefully the Huskies get a win and carry on the trip on the stairway to 7. But going to take care of it for me today. As always, please engage with this podcast or anything else you might like on this channel in any way you can. Go Huskies, and I'll see you all next time.